Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to episode 21 of Funs with Hans. Alright, so I can't really overthink this anymore because it's weird. It's gonna be a slightly different episode because trip to St. Pete is what I want to talk about, and because I promised you, but there's a trick. The whole trip was 5 days. First day was the trip there. We got at midnight, nothing to talk about. Last day was trip back, nothing to talk about. That leaves us 3 days of active St. Peting. Second day, I can't talk about because it's full NDA. Everything that was said, done, shown, and talked about and discussed in what was the first day there, but second day of the total trip, I can't share. It's full NDA. Maybe one day Wargaming will decide that it's time, and then we're going to be able to tell you this is what we were talking about. Before that happens, we can't share anything. Second day is also something that we can, but there's no point in talking about it anymore because the second day was also NDA, but it was under embargo, so which meant that we were going to be able to discuss it when the embargo is lifted, and I'm pretty sure most of you know by now what I'm talking about. They showed us how they balance stuff. They showed us 085, 086, and 087 with all the AA changes and carrier thingies. We were talking about the carriers. We got to play test the whole new thing. There were icebergs, and of course the Naval Training Center, which was a huge debacle. And until a day or two ago, it was still a pretty big thing. I made a 90-minute video about it. A whole bunch of other CCs made videos about it. Wargaming decided to change it. The whole thing has been exploding for a few days. And so there's not really a point to talk about that day either, which leaves us with the fourth day, which is the only day that I can talk about, but that's completely not related to Wargaming because, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with the game. Let's put it that way. And it was the trip to Kronstadt, to the naval base. Later that night at bar, we pay a visit to the Naval Museum and Aurora. And that's basically the only day where I actually got to see anything because the first 2 days I spent from 9 to 9 in the office, and then after that it was dinner. So I'm gonna show you some slideshows, some pictures of the third day. Some of them were taken by me with the camera. Some of them, like this one, were taken by iChase with his professional camera. So thanks to him. And then when I'm done showing you the pictures and done, I'm gonna show you the goodies that we got. And then I'm going to leave you with, I'm not sure how much, but it's going to be like half an hour material. A couple of videos from the Naval Museum where I'm guessing the guy that's working there is basically telling you the history and some cool things about the whole thing. And the second guy is translating everything. And I basically got to film everything. And I'm just going to leave it in Funs with Hans because I honestly don't know what I could talk about to make it a proper Funs with Hans episode, unless just dragging everything around and going into too many details. And I don't want to make this an entirely new video where I show you just what the dude was talking about, so it's going to be kind of mixed. So let me just start this slideshow. And yeah, so basically the third day, we got up. We were split into 3 groups. We were going to visit a church, which was extremely tall. We did like 260, 270 steps. It was a pretty interesting experience because some of the things were extremely tight and narrow. For a dude that's 2 meters tall, that was a bit of a challenge. We visited this place, which is where I'm going to show you the videos at the end. We went we took a tour around the Kronstadt. And later on, we visited Aurora and a couple of other museums that were pretty much closed, so we saw some things from the outside. And that's it. So basically, the first thing that we did was, I can't even remember what was actually the first thing we did. Oh, I think this was actually the first thing that my group did. Yeah, this. And then the second thing we did was, I think was the church or the Kronstadt. Church, then the Kronstadt, or Kronstadt, then the church. It doesn't matter. There's not much to talk about the church anyway, because it's huge, and we did 270 steps up and down. And it looks, you know, amazing. There was actually a submarine made of steel that's like a couple of meters long. I'm not sure if I have a picture anywhere here. I probably don't. Anyway, and then the whole trip to around the Kronstadt was, we were just on a boat, and the dude was talking in Russian. We had a translator who was just telling us about how the whole thing came to be, telling us about how the lighthouses were there, the forts that were built. Some of them were built for like decades. Some of them were being built for like centuries. A couple of wars, Scandinavians, English, and all that stuff. And the part of the tour was supposed to be that we go pay a visit to a destroyer. I think like 1970s destroyer. But unfortunately, Russians don't let anyone who's not Russian on it. So that was a bummer. And that was supposed to be part of the tour. So we had like a couple of hours to spare, because that suddenly, you know, was not available, unfortunately. So you will just get to see it from the outside, 1 or 2 pictures. The funny thing about Kronstadt is the whole thing is like 4 meters deep. It's really, really shallow. And in history, there were a lot of groundings and beachings and scuttling happening there, because people didn't know how shallow it was. And then eventually there was a canal made, which, don't hold my word for it, but I think you needed to circle like 5 times around the whole thing until you would finally get where you needed to go. And that was basically a natural defense. There were a whole bunch of lighthouses there. And the funny story about those is that every time a ship would get beached and they couldn't, you know, get them unstuck, they would fill it with rocks. They would light it on fire, and they would use that as a foundation to build a lighthouse. There were plenty of lighthouses, let's just put it that way. And yeah, we were basically just sailing around and looking at these forts, how they look like, how many guns they had, and all sorts of these things. I'm not really going to show you any recordings because it was really, really windy, so I don't think you would hear anything. And there's not much to show, really, because when you're looking at it from the camera, everything is just small. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of pictures here in the slideshow where you can see from close how these, I wouldn't really call it bunkers, like fortifications were looking like. That's pretty much it. And then after that, when everything was done, we went to this place where there were a whole bunch of guns laying outside. Some of the tanks and missile thingies were all inside. Everything that's inside was taken by iChase a couple of days earlier. We couldn't get the access because by the time we would actually get some free time, like this picture, everything would already be closed, like 4, 5, 6 p.m. when we would arrive. It was already closed, so we only got to see from the outside. And Aurora, unfortunately, didn't get time to get in the Aurora either. We only got to see it from the outside, but I actually caught some people, some sailors there. It was some sort of a ceremony. So while I was there taking some pictures and stuff, you know, they were actually all lined up and the ceremony was, you know, happening. And they were being called by name and then they would salute and yada yada. I'm not sure what that was about, but pretty cool looking ship. I think it's completely fixed to the shore with some extended lines. So, you know, it doesn't, well, get beached, if you want to call it that way. After that, got a couple of taxis, as I'm sure iChase already mentioned. Yandex Taxi is the one you want to use when you're in Russia because it's really cheap and it's Russian Uber, pretty much. This is me and Mike, or I, Earl Grey. Dude is a fucking legend. Maybe one day he gives me consent so I can actually show you some pictures and videos from the last evening. This is the Indian guy, Captain Arya, I believe. For some reason, I kept calling him Captain Jack. This is Penguin with 2 raincoats. Funny story about that. This was when we were unloaded to actually go and go around the Kronstadt. They gave us these blue balls, really small ones, that had raincoats apparently inside. So he just took 2 of these and put them as well. You saw. This is opposite to where the Naval Museum is, and there was actually some live fire going on there. This is one of the fortifications, and we spent like, I don't know, maybe an hour in that Naval Museum. This is the destroyer that I was talking to you about that we were supposed to go on, but unfortunately we couldn't. Sad face. It looks awesome. I think we spent like an hour at least in that museum, and by the time we were in there, on 3 or 4 occasions you could actually hear the live fire. I'm not sure exactly how far away, but it sounded relatively close. And it sounded like an automatic black gun or something. I'm not sure. And yeah, then when everything was done, we basically just went to the bar where we had ton of food. These dudes just kept bringing more and more and more and more food, and they didn't stop. They legit didn't stop until, well, I don't know. They just wouldn't stop until the whole evening was over. And, you know, we had some drinks and we had some fun, and then Isle Grey got a bit drunk, and then everything got a lot more interesting. And that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, this was made in a couple of different videos, so there's not really that much to talk about the trip to St. Pete. Oh, there's actually one thing that I did forget about, and that's on the first evening when we were going, when the whole full NDA day was done. We went for dinner, or organized by this wonderful person called Xenia. She basically found some restaurant where we all went, and between the meals, she decided to organize that we all go to the rooftop, which was a couple of floors up by stairs. And when we got to a certain floor and everybody was already kind of, okay, this is a lot of stairs, there were, I don't know, like 30 shots of vodka waiting for us there. Horseradish vodka, apparently. I hate radish. And we all took a shot of that. It's strong, but that was not the problem for me. The taste was disgusting. And then she said there's 7 more floors that we need to take by step, at which point I asked her, like, are you serious? And she was dead serious, and she said, I never joke. I don't know the woman at this point, so I had no idea. And the stairs were basically going in the circle, so you couldn't see what's upstairs until you started going upstairs, and then you realized that suddenly you were on the roof. So joke's on me. Then we got up there, pull off a couple of jokes, from which you saw a couple with me and Mike. And then on the way down, again, got to the same bar that was just 1 floor below the roof. Another shot of that bloody radish vodka, which then turned out to somehow make iChase go for another shot and then drink some wine, which they ordered during the evening on his table. And needless to say, the dude got wasted. To my shocking experience, that was the first time he actually got drunk in his life. And I mean, that's not the shocking part, that he got drunk first time ever. The dude doesn't look as old as he is. I think he said he's like 30 something years old. He doesn't look that old at all. Like 10 years younger. And the funny part was, like, the way that he got drunk. He took 3 shots of vodka. And he, like, this is the dude that probably never drank alcohol before, like, and immediately, like, hardcore shots of vodka, and then mixed it with wine. That's a big no-no. Anyone who's got any experience in drinking will tell you that's a big, massive no-no. You don't do that. If you're new in drinking, you don't mix drinks, especially not drink anything with wine, because wine will fucking mess you up. And it did mess him up. So that was a pretty funny experience for us. For him, it was a nightmare, but he got through it. The next day, he was just trying to recuperate himself, but he was actually fine. And the day after that, which was when we were supposed to go into Kronstadt, he fell asleep. He missed the bus. It's like he was a day late. I don't know. I can't explain. But that's basically it. Like, we really, from the 3 days that we spent in St. Petersburg, 2 days we spent in the office from morning to evening, doing nothing but this whole thing with Wargaming, from which one day I can tell you about, and I did, one day I can't. And the third day was basically this. I'm going to show you pictures of the goodies that we got, because they got us all the goodie bags. One of the best things that they got us was this. This is made in glass with a wooden bottom frame. You basically put this glass in here, and then in the wood, there's batteries and some blue LED lights, which you can turn on, and then it looks pretty freaking awesome. Of course, it's not supposed to be this dirty. This is just me trying to put it in. As funny as that sounds, it was too tight. This is really amazing. I have it next to my table now, and it looks absolutely awesome. Whole bunch of other content. It was all stored in this goodie bag right here. The contributor shirt, the contributor mouse pad, but considering I got a whole table as one big mouse pad, I think I'll just have this eventually framed. This was the power bank, which is apparently supposed to be charged by solar energy. I'm not sure if mine is working correctly, but when it comes to solar charging. But it looks awesome. I'll show you later. This is one of the things that I actually got from their kitchen because it looks awesome. And Mrs. Citadel somehow washed it, and it disintegrated itself into 3 different layers. I have it here next to me, and it looks terrible. I don't know if I can salvage that or not. And the most awesome hoodie in the world. It really looks beautiful. And I'm sure if yeah, you can see it from the front here as well. It's a really awesome hoodie. And it's actually relatively thick. So on the coldest moments, while Europe was dying at 40+ degrees, we had like 15 and breeze. This actually kept me warm. And yes, this is the power bank. And yes, you can see this a bit closer. Power bank. This is the solar cells. We got the USB, which I still didn't even open to check actually how big it is. We got poker cards, which look like this. And there was something really interesting, you know, that every deck of poker cards has, it's basically all the tier 10s. Like, all the pictures are all tier 10s, I think, in the game. But every deck of cards has Joker cards. And this particular deck, very interesting Joker cards, so to say. So, yeah, this is a couple of pictures that I actually made myself from the whole trip. Yeah. So, yeah, like, it was, as much as we really don't agree with Wargaming about a lot of stuff, you know, thank you very much to Wargaming. They're absolutely awesome hosts. And thank you for all the goodies. We really gave them hell. Like, we really gave them hell throughout those 2 days. And one of the days, like I said, I can't really talk about. But the second day, well, you know all about the Naval Training Center by now, right? So, yeah, that's about it when it comes to the trip to St. Pete. I'm really not sure what else to tell you. I'm sure I forgot some things, but 2 out of 3 days we spent in the office. So, there's not much to say. But I'm looking forward to maybe going next year if I get invited. It was an awesome experience, and I will definitely be going a day early or staying a day after to actually get to see the whole city. Because the city is massive, absolutely massive. I think they said it's like when it's tourists and everything, it gets up to like 20 million people. My whole country has like 4. So, yeah. The city doesn't look that different from where we are, although this part reminds of Venice, honestly. It's... Where is it? This part reminds me of Germany, of course. I mean, of course, every city, and like Brandenburg Gate, that's how it looks like, at least. Every city has its monuments and stuff that look decorated and special, but I don't have actually any other I can really quickly find. Not sure if you seen these. I think you did. I'm not sure. Yeah, Mrs. Citadel actually got a bunch of pictures that I didn't get to see. Oh, this is the hotel where we were at. It has like 105 rooms, by the way. Funny story about that is... Oh, I should have probably started with that. Me and Panzerknacker arrived. And we got like midnight on the first day. And we wanted to, you know, check in. And the woman that was working at the at the counter, whatever you want to call it, you know, she started giving us a bunch of papers that we need to sign and yada yada yada. And then she was doing her thing on the PC, and we were waiting. And then at one point, I was like, "Can I ask you a question?" And in the same time that I said that, she just raised the paper very slowly, put it on the counter, and said, 150 rubles, please. And Panzerknacker and I just took a look at each other, started laughing, and he was like, I guess you can't. But they were fine. I mean, the hotel was fine. I think Virtual Senpai's room got flooded. That was pretty funny. And every single shower had a different hose. Like, mine was extremely small. It took forever to actually shower, and other people reported that they have it too big. That also probably sounds wrong, but hey. But, you know, all in all, it was pretty fun. Hoping for it again next time. And now I will leave you with a picture, if I can find it, where we will all at. And then I will leave you with the Naval Museum, where the hosts are going to be telling you all about the history about some of these guns, and it's a pretty good thing to actually see and listen to. So if you're interested, stick around to the end of the video and watch that. If not, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Here we go. I actually found the picture. So one last thing that I'm sure you will be interested in is to actually see some of the community contributors. Now, you know me, Flumpafish, my memory, so I very much apologize to all the people whose nicknames I don't remember, or real names. I will just show you the dudes that I do remember. I mean, I remember all of them, but I don't remember some of the names. Like, for example, this guy, one of the Koreans, I believe, Ken. This was Xenia. This was the girl that organized everything. Crisantos, Arya, the Indian guy, Flamu, myself. I think it's Major Rage. I know these dudes, I just can't remember the names. Mike, or I.R. Gray. Virtual Senpai, Lord Zath, Private Penguin, Hellrig, Wojciech, Mejash, that's the Panzerknacker, Sea Raptor. I wish I could remember this guy's name, but I can't. And some of them are just, you know, Russian CC, so I don't know all of them. This is Uocat. But I remember like 95% of people from this picture, at least 90. I just don't remember the names, so I apologize. But this is the people that were there, and I'll leave you with the video now.
Территория, огражденная обводным каналом, который занимает примерно четверть города Кронстадта, это территория Адмиралтейства.
So this territory, which is bordered by the channel, is actually was the territory of the Navy Admiralty.
При конце 18 века, при Екатерине II, когда в Санкт-Петербурге сгорело главное адмиралтейство, было принято решение главное адмиралтейство построить в Кронштадте.
So in the end of the 18th century, when the Admiralty in St. Petersburg burned by fire, there was a decision made to make Admiralty here in Kronstadt.
В итоге это сделано не было, реализовано не было, но часть помещений все-таки и часть инфраструктуры была построена.
So the decision wasn't actually taken into place, but part of the infrastructure was actually built, and you can see it now.
В конце 18 века было построено вот эти три одинаковых здания. Это первая, вторая и третья парусные мастерские. Здесь были паруса для кораблей.
So you can see the building. It was actually built in the end of the 18th century, initially as the workshops to make sails for the Russian Navy.
В начале 19 века, когда размеры парусных кораблей увеличились, было построено более большое здание вот этой четвертой парусной мастерской.
So in the 19th century, they built one more building because the sail ship became bigger, and they need more space to build the sails. So the next building, the fourth workshop, was built.
В середине 19 века, после Крымской войны, когда парусные корабли уже сошли на нет, это здание сначала использовалось в качестве склада.
When in the end of the 19th century, when they changed the navy from the sail navy to the steam, they stopped using it to make sails and make the armories there.
А потом для повышения квалификации офицеров российского императорского флота в Кронштадте были открыт минный офицерский класс и артиллерийский офицерский класс. И вот в этом здании обучались офицеры-артиллеристы.
And the next step of how they used this building was they actually used it for the places for the officers of the Russian Navy to study the torpedo armament, торпедный артиллерийский класс, and the artillery actually as well.
И вплоть, в том числе во время советской власти и до 1994 года здесь была школа оружия. То есть готовили артиллеристов, но уже рядовых, матросов.
So till the actually nowadays till 1994 they used to use this building as the classes for not the officers but the sailors, specialists in gun armament.
И все вот эти представленные орудия изначально были не музейными экспонатами, а учебными пособиями.
So it makes sense that all the guns you see here were actually used as the learning tools for these sailors to become masters in armament. So they were not the museum pieces, but actually were used to study guys to how to fire from these guns, how to shoot.
Do we know which of these turrets belong to which ships?
Oh, sure, I will tell you.
Okay, thank you.
About that.
Некоторые из этих орудий, вот это, вон то, большие башенные орудия, имели силовые приводы, и из кабинетов можно было управлять наведением вот этих орудий по горизонту и по вертикали.
That's cool. So part of these guns actually intended to be installed on the ships. They had the systems which can be manipulated from the building. So they actually learned not like they were not dead here, but were manipulated by electricity to learn how to all this stuff.
Значит, перейдем непосредственно к орудиям. Наиболее тяжелое В2ЛМ калибра 130 мм, вес вместе с башней 49 тонн.
So one of the most heavy artillery pieces you will see here is the B2 LM naval artillery gun. It is 130 millimeters, and the weight of the gun turret is 24 tons.
Во время Великой Отечественной войны было принято на вооружение перед самой войной в 1941 году, и во время Великой Отечественной войны стояло на единственном корабле Черноморского флота лидере Ташкент.
So this is something you will be interested in. So this artillery pieces was actually taken into service in 1941, just before the Second World War for Russia broke, and it was used on only one ship. You know it. It is Tashkent leader. So you can see it in the
Tashkent.
Да. Лидер Ташкент был построен по заказу советского флота итальянской фирмой Otto
So
в
yeah,
1939 году.
Tashkent was, you probably know that, built in Italy by the order of Soviet government and Soviet Navy in Italy by private firm Otto Naval.
Корабль прославился своими героическими походами в осажденный Севастополь.
So the ship is actually famous for the few cruises to the Sevastopol, which was besieged by German forces.
Особенно тяжелый был последний поход в Севастополь, когда корабль вывез 2200 эвакуированных человек гражданского населения плюс культурные ценности.
So the most tragic and the most cruise was to the Sevastopol, the last one, when the Tashkent evacuated 2,000 people, citizens of the Sevastopol, to the mainland, to Novorossiysk, and also museum pieces of the parts of the big painting of the first besieging of Sevastopol during 19th century.
Через несколько дней после этого похода, 2 июля 1942 года, корабль погиб, стоя у стенки в Новороссийске. Был буквально засыпан бомбами, 4 прямых попадания.
So, just a few days later, after this cruise, ship was actually sunken by the German aircraft. It was bombed heavily and sunk near the pier of Novorossiysk.
So it was anchored?
It was anchored.
Okay.
Will we get to go inside the turrets?
Мы же не попадем внутрь башни, они закрыты. No, unfortunately they're closed.
Now we can see them, they're open.
Эти установки устанавливались на эскадренные миноносцы проекта 30.
So after the war, these guns were installed on the destroyer project 30.
Это была самая крупная серия советских крупных надводных кораблей, было выпущено 70 единиц.
So this was after the war one of the biggest series of Russian destroyers. 70 destroyers were built by the project 30Bs.
На каждом эсминце стояло 2 таких установки в носу и в корме, соответственно.
So each had 2 of these guns.
These destroyers?
Turrets.
These 70 destroyers was equipped with 2 of these?
Yeah.
That's okay, told you.
Кроме того, на этих же эсминцах проекта 30 бит в качестве оружия противовоздушной обороны дальней зоны стояла одна вот такая установка 92К.
So the same Project 30B's destroyers used as the anti-aircraft artillery 92K gun.
Это оружие было принято на вооружение еще в ходе Великой Отечественной войны.
So this artillery piece was taken into service during the Second World War, the Great Patriotic War, as we call it.
И первые из таких великих орудий еще во время войны их получили артиллерийские крейсера проекта 26 БИС.
So the first ships in Russian Navy who were equipped with these guns were cruisers Project 26Bs.
Всего было построено 6 таких крейсеров, из них в боевых действиях участвовали 4.
Well, six were built, but only 4 of them, you probably know that, were in service during the war.
В боевых действиях на Балтике и на Черном море участвовали крейсера Киров, Молотов, Ворошилов и... Нет. Киров, Молотов, Ворошилов, господи, третий, ну ладно.
Донской?
No, this is the...
Молотов, Ворошилов, ладно. 2 крейсера, Каганович и Петропавлов,
Crispy
были
Kreme.
на Тихоокеанском.
So in four of them, Kirov, Molotov, Kaganovich, no, not the,
Oh, that class.
yeah.
Каганович и Петропавлов
Kaganovich and Petropavlovsk were on the Pacific Ocean, and they see no action, and four of them, yeah.
И они получили на вооружение вот именно такие орудия.
Только два из.
Maybe Goodie only was one of
Yeah,
them.
it makes sense. So just two that see no action because they have time to install these artillery pieces. Got this during the war.
А корабли, которые воевали на Балтике и на Черном море, остальные 4 корабля, вместо них имели вот в качестве орудий противовоздушной обороны Б-34.
So and the last four used as the anti-aircraft guns. Those turrets B-34.
Ну, сейчас давайте мы подойдем к снарядам.
So we'll come close to the to the shells to talk about the types of shells they use.
That looks badass. Is that an AA?
Минут 10.
Ага, ладно.
Следующую побыстрее, побольше.
Понятно, понятно. Ага.
So guys, please come closer. Let's talk a little bit about shells.
The size.
Основные типы артиллерийских снарядов, применяемые на флоте, фугасный и бронебойный.
The main types of the shells they use in the Navy are armor-piercing and
High explosive?
yeah. Sorry.
Фугасный снаряд. Тонкая стенка и очень много места для взрывчатого вещества.
So the high explosion one have thick not the blanket. So thick wall and a lot of space for the powder.
Бронебойный снаряд. Очень мало взрывчатого вещества, зато мощная твердая болванка, которая пробивает броню.
And the armor piercing is basically a big piece of metal just to penetrate the armor.
Was Fugasna, the way he said it, is that like high explosive or like heat? High explosive armor piercing or whatever it is?
It is the high explosive one.
Just a high explosive? Okay.
Guys, I will give you like 5 minutes after the excursion to make photos.
Oh, that's a Grozovoi. That's a Grozovoi turret.
СМ-20 ЗИП 45-мм, 4-орудийная.
So, quadruple gun, the mark SM-20 ZIF. So ZIF is the marking of the factory which produced it, and SM is the Navy Institute which actually made the gun.
В качестве основного средства ПВО использовались на эсминцах 56-го и 57-го проектов.
So they used as the anti-AA guns, just use it shorter, on the projects 56 and 57 destroyers.
Эсминцы 56-го проекта была очень удачная серия советских эсминцев. Были на вооружении с 50-х и до начала 90-х годов.
So Project 56 destroyers were very successful project of the Russian Soviet destroyers, Cold War era, and they were in service through the 50s and till the 1990s.
Как вот здесь вот написано, изначально они разрабатывались для крейсеров, но на крейсерах они так и не стояли.
They were initially produced and intended to be used on the heavy cruisers and battleships of Project 24 as well, but since they were not built, they were used on destroyers.
В качестве основного зенитного средства самой массовой послевоенной серии советских крейсеров 68 и 68 БИС проекта было вот это вот орудие.
So as the main anti-aircraft dual-purpose guns on the Russian cruisers Cold War era Project 68, they used this gun. SM SM5 Martin.
По полукруглой нижней форме видно, что это орудие было стабилизированным, то есть отрабатывало качку.
So they use stabilization for this gun. You can see it by the form of the turret. So to compensate, yeah.
Значит, здесь представлена башня от плавающего танка ПТ-76.
One of the
It looks like a tank turret.
Напомню по поводу проекта 68, что он сейчас сохранился. So one of the Project 68 cruisers is actually a museum ship, part of the Navy museum. It is in Novorossiysk now. Mikhail Kutuzov, you know it.
Так, это значит
Yeah.
башня от плавающего танка ПТ-76.
So and the next object is the tank gun of the amphibious tank PT
76.
78.
Да, это там марка пушки написано, танк ПТ-76, да. Танк был на вооружении морской пехоты до 1993 года.
So our Marines used that till the 1990s, and also, as far as I recall, it was used on the gunboats.
Здесь эта башня представлена потому, что точно такие же башни стояли в том числе на речных мониторах и бронных катерах.
So yeah, I just told that indeed that guns were used also on the monitors and the gunboats, the river gunboats.
Так, реактивная система залпового огня ГМ-14.
And the rocket system are the they use 70 rails, 140 millimeters. So the multi-barrel. Thank you.
Значит, устанавливались тоже на речных мониторах и бронекатерах для стрельбы исключительно по берегу.
So this system was mounted on the gunboats and monitors used for the river actions, but the charges it is only against the surface charges. So they need to stay calm. So they can be used during any going. So they need to stay still, make launch, and then disappear.
But they were using it on ships.
Yeah.
The ship just had to be fully stationary. Okay.
That's the idea.
Самые массовые артиллерийские орудия времен войны 21К и 21КМ.
So this is probably one of the most the largest in production artillery pieces, 21K, and they also produced the modification 21 and 21K. Yeah, that's the modification.
What is the caliber of this?
45.
45 millimeter.
В 1932 году на вооружении сухопутных войск было принято 45-миллиметровое противотанковое орудие. То есть легендарная 45-ка, которая провоевала всю войну.
Не расслышал год какой?
32.
In 1932, Russian Soviet Army, not the Navy Army, produced the anti-tank gun 45 millimeter.
Так, вот это морской вариант вот этой сухопутной пушки противотанковой.
And this is actually the Navy option of the same anti-tank gun.
Она устанавливалась на всех мобилизованных кораблях, катерах, буксирах, гражданских судах и так далее.
So they used to install it during the war on the civilian vessels which were mobilized for war, like tenders, icebreakers, so on and so forth. They also use it on the Krasny Kavkaz guns.
Оно же устанавливалось на подводных лодках.
And the submarines utilized this gun as well.
Наши самые маленькие подводные лодки типа М, малютки, имели на вооружении только одно такое орудие.
So the smallest Soviet submarines, M Malutka, used just one of these artillery pieces.
Like that gun.
Yeah.
Самые крупные лодки типа К, крейсерские, имели два таких орудия и два 100-миллиметровых орудия.
So the biggest World War II Soviet boats, type K, cruiser boats, had two of these guns, и два еще каких?
Два 100-миллиметровых.
And two 100-millimeter guns.
В 1942 году это орудие было модернизировано. Раньше оно было такое. В 1942 году в 2 раза увеличили длину ствола.
So yeah, they basically in 1942 they made a modification, 92K, just enlarged the length of the barrel.
Орудие вот с
Bigger
таким
pen,
стволом называется 21К. Вот с таким
Sorry,
стволом
21.
21КМ.
So yeah, and the modification called 21 KM, the marking.
What the hell is the caliber of this thing?
Два ствола
152.
завода, 1895 год.
So these are two barrels produced in St. Petersburg.
Someone's actually shooting somewhere.
So it is 152
Could be tractors there.
guns.
Это стволы от 152-миллиметровых известных пушек Кане.
So yeah, these are barrels of the Kane guns, very famous, produced in the end of the 19th century and utilized heavily in the First World War in the beginning of 20th century.
В конце 19-го, начале 20 века корабли всех основных морских держав имели на вооружении в качестве основного или вспомогательного калибра 6-дюймовки Кане.
So yeah, as I told, not only Russian Navy used those guns, but probably most of the navies of the First World War, pre-World War era in 20th century, in the beginning of it, used those guns either as the main guns or as secondary gun caliber.
Такие 6-дюймовки Кане стояли на наших самых легендарных кораблях. Крейсере Aurora, крейсере Варяг.
So yeah, those Kane guns were used on most well-known Russian cruisers Varyak and Aurora.
На фортах Кронштадтской крепости стояли береговые варианты вот этого 6-дюймового орудия Кане. Основное вооружение фортов было.
Not only as armament for ships, but also as armament for the naval forts. So we are here in Kronstadt. There was a Kronstadt fortress, and they used that in the coastal artillery as well, here in Kronstadt.
А на вооружении, например, Владивостокской крепости такие орудия Кане стояли до 50-х годов 20 века, тоже после войны.
And there is also in Vladivostok was a navy fortress. They utilized the same guns until 1950s.
Ну, сейчас, 3 минуты. Это настоящая накладная доска самого знаменитого, самого легендарного корабля советского флота времен войны, крейсер Киров.
This is the original ship's flag, Kirov. You recall it? So Kirov took part in defending city from the blockade from the Nazi forces, and the main guns were dismounted, and you can see it if you have any time or decision to go there in St. Petersburg. They are installed there.
Корабль был построен тоже с участием итальянских специалистов фирмы Ансальдо.
So Kirov was the project was created with the help of the Italian specialists from Ansaldo company.
За основу был проект теоретический чертеж итальянского крейсера Eugenio di Savoia.
So yeah, they used the hull lines of Eugenio di Savoia cruiser.
Крейсер участвовал в Сталинском переходе.
Oh yeah, the cruiser took part in the very tragic part of this Soviet Navy history when the fleet, the main base of the Soviet Navy, was in Tallinn during in the beginning of the war, and because of the German forces were coming closer to Tallinn, and Tallinn was taken by Germans. They had to move to the Leningrad, and during that move, the squadron was bombed heavily. There were a lot of losses, and Kirov took part in this.
Крейсер нес большие потери всю войну, когда стоял в блокаде. Так во время только одной бомбежки в апреле 1942 года погибло 86 человек из экипажа.
So cruisers were one of the primary targets for German aircrafts and artillery as well. So it was bombed, and just during one bombing raid in 1942, the losses of the crew was 80 sailors and officers.
Одна из попавших в корабль бомб прямым попаданием вывела из строя сразу все 6 вот таких зенитных орудий. Они очень неудачно стояли, скомпонованные в одном месте. Взрыва одной бомбы хватило, чтобы всех вывести из строя. Да.
So during that raid that I mentioned, the 1942 bombing raid, just one bomb taken out of service all 6 of these anti-aircraft guns. They were combined very close one to each other, so it was a lucky hit to make them out of control of the crew.
После войны крейсер Киров получил установки В-34 УСТ. Отличие в том, что вот эти УСТ имели силовой привод, то есть наводились уже центральной наводкой, без участия наводчика.
So after the war, cruiser got modification with the new guns, and they used electricity to point out the guns through the Combat Information Center.
Миллиметровая спаренная установка В-11.
So this is the 37 millimeter quad anti-aircraft gun B-11.
В течение всей войны вот эти установки постепенно заменяли собой вот эти установки 21К.
So
вместо тех ставились эти.
it was the war modification, and this gun replaced actually the 45 millimeter AA gun 21K, which we see.
Отличие в том, что 21К имела одиночное заряжание и для стрельбы по самолетам плохой был.
So yeah, as you can probably imagine, 21K anti-aircraft gun was slow in service just because it has one barrel, and it has to be it's taking a lot of time to put a shell in the barrel. So this gun was replaced during the war steadily as they had time to do that, and the rate of fire was much better.
Здесь заряжание происходило магазинами по 5 выстрелов.
So yeah, they utilized magazines with 5 shells in each.
И, соответственно, пушка могла вести автоматический огонь, плюс к тому жидкостное охлаждение ствола. То есть огонь мог идти бесконечно, пока не кончался боезапас.
So yeah, as well they used the cooling system, so they can fire without any stop, and of course the rate of fire was much greater.
Стояли
So это была вода, да?
Да.
Yeah,
Water cooling.
Значит, стояли на очень многих типах кораблей, в частности, на уже упоминающихся крейсерах 68-го БИС-проекта стояло 16 таких установок, то есть 32 ствола. До начала 90-х годов на вооружении было.
So, after the war, when they have enough time to install it in the greater majority of Russian warships, they were used, for example, on Project 68 cruisers, and that type of cruiser had 16 guns of that type.
И последний наш экспонат, в центре стоит бронированная огневая точка.
And the last artillery piece, which we'd like to show you, is the stationary artillery point protected by the
Такие
armor.
бронированные огневые точки изготавливались во время войны на Кронштадтском морском заводе из листов брони толщиной от 6 до 15 миллиметров.
So the Kronstadt, yeah?
Да.
So they were produced here in Kronstadt. It is not something which they put on the ships. Instead, they used it here in the land to protect the island and the mainland. So it was just stationed in one place and could just defend the.
Использовались для противодесантной обороны, особенно в зимнее время. Вокруг острова и фортов расставлялись по льду. Гарнизон, естественно, один человек, один пулемет.
So yeah, they were used to protect islands from the surface forces, which would take opportunity to land on the island. So they were manned by just one man and one gun.
Is that the little turret
Yeah,
that we're talking about now?
The small
Okay,
turret,
okay.
and a machine gun, yeah, and one machine gun.
The one in this one here.
Yeah.
Ну вот, собственно, все.
Let me show you how small this thing actually is.
Armored firing pump. It was produced during the war years of the Great Patriotic War 1941 at Kronstadt shipyard. It was used for anti-amphibious protection on the Copland Island. Maxim machine gun. Like, this is the Ogden.
I think you can actually see from the back inside, and this is very surprising for me that a person is actually operating inside, but I'm guessing this would be mounted, you know, you wouldn't actually fit it inside. It would probably be just the upper part of the body. And this thing I recognized the second I saw it. The Organavoid turret.
From behind.
They had like 70 destroyers mounted with these things. Yeah, I thought.
Can you actually see me from there? Yeah, you can adjust it, yeah. This is how big it actually is.
The local monkey?
How do you get down from here, though? Yeah. Turn the camera off so I don't end up on live leak. Oh, shit. Okay, first of all, we're going to put these on.
That's the Flamu actually shaking.
It looks so shaky up there because it's a small little thing you get
Yeah.
hold on. That's what she said. Where's my camera? There it is.